I come from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It is 66 miles west of Biloxi Gulfport, 86 miles south of Jackson, 100 miles east of New Orleans, where most people still go to catch the plane. But it's just a skip, hop, and a jump from the Nile, down the street from Kenya, around the corner from the Ife, and down the street from South Africa. I've been around a long time. The drums of Africa still beat in my heart and will not let me rest until every black boy and every black girl has had a chance to prove their worth. One black woman, my hand in God's hands, He has never failed me yet. I am happy to be here with you all this evening. And Terry, I am glad you find me worthy of the sharing. Charles Dickens in 1859 wrote The Tale of Two Cities. He said it was the best of times and the worst of times. We have everything before us. We have nothing before us. The president tells us that these are the good times. In Michigan, 700,000 children live in homes where no parent has a full-time job. Many parents are working in seasonal employment. We live in a state that ranks 33rd in the bottom half of the nation when it comes to poor children. That is in every aspect that's been measured. And now state government is talking about holding our third grade children behind because they don't meet the standards they have set for our children. And our response has been cold silence. Imagine that. Imagine the state of Michigan saying to the parents in Bloomfield Hills or in Grosse Pointe, any of the points, we're going to keep your third grade children behind. I can hear Gretchen Whitmer getting a few calls saying, don't you like that job? Or how well do you like that job you've just gotten? We're not going to tolerate that kind of foolishness. You're not going to mess with our children. And yet, the children who are targeted in this new rule are children of color. And we will do what animals won't do. Animals will kill you if you come after their young. What's wrong with us? What has happened to us? The steps on the Capitol should be so full of parents and people who love and respect children of color that no one would be able to go in and no one would be able to come out. Sometimes we're not aware of the games that people play. Understand that in this country, people who build prisons look at the fourth grade scores of children to decide how many prisons they're going to build. They look at their fourth grade scores. Now in Detroit, we're talking about a school system that it wasn't excellent, but it was doing okay before the state took over. And I believe there were 150,000 children in the district. And every year under state takeover, the numbers declined and the scores declined as well. Sometimes we're just not aware of the games that people play, and more importantly, we don't respond. It is as if we say to them, you are the experts, do your thing. It's time to return for us as a people to return to the fold. Think about this. You know, I would say everybody in here over 50, raise your hand, but you all aren't going to be honest. So, you know, I'm okay with that. I want to ask you that. But those of us over 50 ought to know better. A group of Southern black people with no text, no cell phones, no internet, very few of them had telephones at home, and very few owned cars. All they had was God, each other, and a stinky mimeograph machine in the basement of a church. And they broke the backbone of segregation in America. And so my question to you tonight is, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? We've got it all. Emails, and you can get online and reach somebody in another part of the world in less than 3 minutes. What's wrong with us? I'll tell you what's wrong with us. Those of us who are baby boomers, we were the first generation of black Americans to have a little access to opportunity in this country, and we stopped telling the story. You know, before then, our parents were saying, listen, you're going to have to be twice as good, you're going to have to work harder, you got to do all of these things because the day you were born, because of your skin, you became an enemy in America. And I love you enough to protect you. And they weren't educated parents either. That's what's so amazing. They were uneducated. Many of them could not read, but they believed that an education was a passport to a great opportunity in America. We were not losing our young men to prisons. We just weren't, and we were poor. You know, they were either going to the military, or they're going to work, or they were going to college. And the funny thing about that is our parents didn't have any money, and we ended up at college anyway. They could not take us, so they sent us. And a lot of us, from where I come from, got on that Greyhound bus with a shoebox with some wax paper, fried chicken, and some white sliced bread. That was to get us to where we were going. And somehow, when we got there, we were welcomed by adults in financial aid and in classrooms who wanted the best for us and who would not accept anything less than excellence. We didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. So I say to you, as the scores spiral downward for our children, they tell us that we've got 4,000 black churches in Detroit, maybe more than that. There should not be a church that doesn't have a tutoring, nurturing program for our children. There was a time when you went to school and you knew teachers. They looked like teachers. They were proud. They dressed differently from their students. They weren't wearing leggings, and you didn't see their breast and their curves. And when a child walked in that school who needed love and nurture, they could recognize him when he walked through the front door. You know, deep within each and every one of us is that need for us to feel that we matter, that we have value, that we are significant. And those teachers would put their arms around those babies and tell them how smart they were, and they would make demands of them. There's something interesting about children. When they know that you care about them and you set standards for them, they will strive with all of their might to rise to the occasion. And I'm talking about children who come from homes that are ill-prepared to nurture them. When they get to school, if they can find that kind of adult who looks at him and tells him how great he is and treats him with respect, he changes, even if he has to return to that same home every day that's ill-prepared to nurture him. He begins to reach for the top. He graduates. We don't lose him. And he goes to college, or he goes and he does something else to become self-sufficient in this country. What's going on with us? No other race. Think about it. Every other race that came after us in this country is outdistancing us. Even the Jamaicans and the Nigerians, they think we've totally lost it because they don't understand how in this country, as long as we have, and our accomplishments, and we've lost our children the way that we have. And many of them come from very poor places, but all of their lives they've been taught that in America, if I could just get to America, the streets are paved with gold and is flowing with milk and honey. I said, I don't know if they only let the smart ones out, but I've never met a dumb African, a dumb Jamaican, or any other blacks that come from other places outside of America. They value education. They understand it, they get it. And we have lost ground. How do we get back? How do we save our children? How do we decrease these numbers that keep rising? I want to take you back, if you will, to the year, it was 1975. 1975. Follow me, if you will, to Chicago, Illinois. An Alabama-born Chicago teacher, black woman, retired from teaching. She said she was fed up with the Chicago public school system and what it was doing to low-income children, labeling those children and saying that they were learning disabled. Women, most of us, even if we grew up with fathers and brothers, do not understand male behavior. And as a result of that, we misdiagnose, we have no business diagnosing in the first place, this male behavior. And so we have teachers, even black women, who are labeling black boys who start out so very bright, and they're just busy. Boys are busy. That's what that Y chromosome is all about. They're just busy. And these parents, they label them, and then you have black mothers who trust these teachers because they're supposed to be professionals and these folks in the school, and they end up giving these boys drugs. Drugs that have foreign drugs that are going into their bodies and making them act in manners and ways that they should not. So this woman was tired of that. And so she took $5,000 of her own money, which was a lot of money back in 1975 for somebody to just take out and have. And it was her retirement money. And she opened a low tuition private school, Marva Collins. CBS got wind of what she was doing, and she set out with a goal. And this is something I will never ever forget. She said, "I'll show you what love can do." And understand, these were children from the west and south side of Chicago who were dirt poor and who had not been performing well in school. Well, Morley Safer, who's deceased at this time, a great journalist at CBS, went to see what was going on at West Side Preparatory School. She opened the school on the top floor of her brownstone, her home there in Chicago. And I want you all to go to YouTube, since you spend so much time on the internet more than you should, not doing anything positive, but dealing with a whole lot of foolishness. Take a moment, and I want you to go to YouTube, and I want you to put in the search bar 60 Minutes Marva Collins. When Morley Safer got to West Side Prep, he went around to these little 8- and 9-year-old black boys and girls, and they started talking about Shakespeare, Henry David Thoreau, and all the great philosophers. And it was just amazing. So it took on, this story just started traveling not only in America, but around the world. And so, as it always happens, when we're doing things better than others, some folk want to say it's not legitimate. There's something wrong with this. So there was a man who wrote a book, and he said that he wrote a book called The Bell Curve. You all remember that? And in it he said that it was impossible for Marva Collins to be making the strides that she was making, that something was really wrong with it. He never went to the school. He never examined the work of the children. He never interviewed Marva Collins, but he said there's no way this black woman in Chicago, who was from Alabama, who grew up in a one-room schoolhouse, who took, she said, the same principles that were used in that one-room schoolhouse and applied them to her children. She said that her father would give her assignments that she believed built her confidence and gave her a sense of responsibility. And she used that with those same children. Let me tell you what happened. 30 years later, when Morley Safer interviewed these kids, he wanted to know, what did they want to be? What did they want in life? He was blown away about just how smart these kids were, but he was very respectful. He did not act doubtful at all with that story. I want y'all have to go and you gotta Google this. Go to YouTube and get it. But anyway, 30 years later, Morley Safer said, let's go back and let's go find these children. Now, they were 8 years old, 8 and 9 when he had interviewed them. These children were doctors, they were lawyers, some were entrepreneurs, one had become a minister, and what was ironic is that most of them were doing exactly what they said they were going to do when they were 8 and 9 years old. That's an educational moment. Charles Murray was the author of The Bell Curve, and he said it was just too good to be true. I want to say to Terry and this foundation, your work is important. Your work is necessary. We will all get there, or none of us will get there. And sometimes we lose our children because we don't like what they look like. You all know what I'm talking about. The hair hasn't been combed. I'm really sick of looking at this underwear now. Y'all gotta get, black men, y'all gotta help these boys. I mean, come on. But my problem with that is, you see grown men walking around now with these, what are we to do? But your work shows the humanness in you. And the kind of work you do is never sacrificing a human purpose. All humans deserve respect and dignity, and they should be treated as such. And I've got a surprise for you. If you come in contact with some of these young people and you treat them with love and respect, guess what? You're going to get exactly the same thing in return. It all starts with you. We cannot. We've lost tremendous ground. And we must have a commitment that is unwavering. I want to tell you about a man. Folks over 50 will know who he is without me calling his name. Those of us who've not made a commitment, we need to find our hill. That you'll process it in a minute. There's a steep hill in a Chicago suburb that was significant in the development of one of pro football's greatest players. During off-season, Billy T, he would run up this tough slope no matter the weather, regardless of the conditions, over and over and over again. He would charge up that hill. Sometimes his teammates would join him. Even rival players from other teams would try to match him, step for step, only to quit near their peak, dropping out in total exhaustion in the summer sun. Few could believe that anyone could be that obsessive with conquering a hill. There were times when he too had had enough. And when the moment surfaced, he rallied again and charged one last time. And when the football season arrived, bruised and battered, he fought for every inch, every yard, every breath. And near the end of the game, when victory and defeat hung in the balance, that hill provided the critical difference. While others faded, this Hall of Fame running back seemed to get stronger. There was little question that he was talented, but all professional football players are talented. Walter Payton also had that hill. It wasn't easy, it wasn't newsworthy, it was back-breaking work. Those of us who believe that our children are worth saving and we've not been active, it's time to get a hill. Thank you.